Hi and welcome to another video. Today I would like to have a quick look into the autoroute package and how to set up a navigation with BottomNavigationBar. Recently I've been bootstrapping a new project in Flutter, and so I've been looking at the different options for navigation. In this video I'm not going to go through different solutions and compare them, but I would like to just show you how you can use autoroute to achieve the goal that I've mentioned before. So firstly, let's have a quick look into the library itself. So autoroute, what it is, it's a navigation library that comes with a couple of fine features. Then if you want to install it, then you have to add this autoroute dependency. And also because autoroute works with code generation, you have to add this autoroute generator over here and build runner as well. In the next step, we are doing some setup of our routes. I will show you that in a moment in an exemplary application. And then after that, we just run this Flutter package pub runner build to build or to generate the code that we defined over here in this annotation. And that's it. And after that, we can just start navigating, except of course, we have to have some router output. So for having router output, we can just use this material app.router that's coming from Flutter itself. And then autorouter, which is instantiated over here. So this is our version of autorouter, the one that was generated. Then we can just use it over here. It comes with a delegate and the default route parser that we just pass here over here. And everything will be working right now. And we will have just basic routing with pages or screens, whatever you like to call them. So down here, they also show you how the generated routes look like. We can also have a quick look later into that in the code. The way you navigate with it is very simple to navigating with the normal navigation. You get the router out of context. You also have a bunch of extension methods like context.router, and then you can run on this router push named, things like that, replace, navigate. You can use paths, you can use routes instead. So then if you look down here, we have this couple of extension methods I mentioned. So we have this router extension method on context, but also we have things like push route, replace route, navigate to, and so on. Then you have also an option to pass an argument to a route, and this is super simple. You just define your page with an argument, and then basically everything will be already generated for you by the code generation. You can also get returns, so you can push something on stack in order to get some response, so this is also supported over here, and you can return a value that you want in the pop method on the router. Finally, if we scroll down, here is the explanation of the nested navigation, and this works with custom setup for nested navigation like they show you over here. But also there are helpers for using tab navigation with all kinds of tab navigation. So with bottom navigation bar like right here. And for that you have some auto tab router. There is another example over here to use page views if you like to use that, or tab bars. Then down here they explain you how you can use the router without a context. So one way is to just define this app router somewhere outside of a widget. And then you can just wrap it with a provider, Riverpod provider, or any other solution, get it maybe, and provide it and use it without a context. The other way would be to also have some maybe a global key and just passing it to a router, and then this key, similarly like with the normal Flutter navigator, would allow you to call to get state of the navigation and to push something on it, pop, and so on. So here you can see that there is also an example with using getIt. Then it's also possible to use declarative navigation, so like with navigation 2.0, working with paths. Especially important if you are working with an app for web and maybe with deep linking as well. And then we also see that we can how to handle the query parameters, redirecting paths, and of course one more feature that is very important is that it has route guards. And then you have also an option to wrap routes, for example with a provider if you're using providers, or with anything else, and have a navigation observer, so whenever some page was pushed to a navigation stack, then you can also get a notification by using observers. And then these observers are basically registered like this over here at the material app.router. You can have your own delegate and then pass the observer over here with the navigator observers. Here is the simple application that I made to just check out how autoroute works. It has a bottom navigation down here, and it has a router output app on top. And then you can switch between the two tabs. You can see I have one tab which just displays the child1 text, and the other tab which has a button. If I click a button, then there is a nested navigation, and it's now push the child2 underscored 1 on top of this nested navigation for posts tab. And now if we come back to users and then back to post, you can see that this state of a navigation state is retained, and we don't see the button again, so it didn't get refreshed. I think it's very important because if you were using a Go router, then this is not by default currently supported with GoRouter. So in order to implement it, there is some issue on GitHub, and you have to do some hacky ways or fork even the repository and just implement some things on top of it. Here's my simple setup. So I have this main page, and this main page is coming basically with this material app.router, and I didn't do any fancy stuff over here. So you just have the delegate and the default root parser that is coming from approuter, which is defined up here, just like in the example we've seen before. And from this point, we have to look into the autorouter over here. So we have this material autorouter annotation. There are other annotations, like for Cupertino, there is a custom one. And then here is my definition of routes. I've defined that I have this top level route over here, which has this path just defined as a slash, because that's the landing one. And for that, I have this dashboard page over here. Now, if we have a look into the dashboard page, then you can see that over here a couple of things is happening. So I have this auto tabs router, and this is to manage the tabs that we've seen on the example right here. You can define over here the routes that will be handled with the tabs. And then in the builder of this thing, you can return a scaffold, and this scaffold comes with this bottom navigation bar field, and then we can pass over here our bottom navigation bar itself. Up here you can see we have this tabs router, which is auto tabs router of context, so this is already available in this context coming here. And this thing will take care of maintaining at which tab we currently are, and also navigating to other tabs or navigating back from a tab, depends how it's implemented. And finally, this thing, the tabs router, is hooked up here with the bottom navigation bar. So usually you would do it on your own. You would have some view model block or whatever that would hold a state. That state would be basically an index of current tab. So in this case, you have this tabs router, and this is doing it for you. So in case of current index, you just pass the active index from this, and then on tab, when you change the tab, then you just notify this tabs router that the index has changed, and then the auto router itself will take care of everything. So you can see that in the body over here we have basically an animation that is wrapping a child, and the child will be then provided with this builder, which is then maintained with auto router. So depending on which index we are, it will just give you a page instantiated based on the route, so tab 1 or tab 2 in our case. So now, being back here, you can see that this auto route, it has children. And these children are also auto routes. In other words, we have a tree structure of routes in our navigation. So we have our main router output, and this router output, which is over here, it can take one of the two routes that I defined. It can be either the child1 tab over here, which is child1 page, and this page I can show you, it's just a pretty plain simple page, nothing here, it just prints a text. And then we have this second route, which is the child2 tab, and this tab over here, or route, it doesn't actually use any page that I have defined, but there is this empty router page. And this empty router page, if we have a look, it's actually an auto router. So what it actually will do, it will just generate or it will provide an output for another nested router over here. In other words, by using this empty router page, we are having another output that will then output one of these two routers. So right now we have one router which is handling these two tabs, and then within the second tab we have another nested router that takes care of these two routes that we can see over here. And then also you can see that we have a couple of arguments, so we can specify of course the page for each route, we can specify the path, we can later navigate through these paths or through the routes itself, and then we also can specify a name. And this is important in case you don't want to use the name of a page to navigate. So for example, I have defined this to be named child2 tab, and now if we have a look into the generated code, we scroll down, then you can see that a configuration for this route was generated with these names, child1 tab and child2 tab. And also these routes basically are called by these names and not the default, like for example dashboard, I didn't define it. So for dashboard it took the dashboard page, and over here it called it dashboard route. Now you may ask why is it a dashboard page route, and that's because we have here this replace route name specified, which replaces page with route. These generated classes over here, there are only configurations for the routes, nothing more than that. If you have a look, so this page route info, it's just a data class basically with a couple of getters that you can get different information like the name, like full path, has children, and so on. So being back here, you can see also there is a couple of other parameters. So we have this deferred loading, so basically that this root will be loaded just after we use it for the first time. And then the way that it's generated, if we have a look over here, yeah, right here. So for example, I have defined it for the dashboard page. So here we have a page factory for the dashboard page. So we have this pages map generated, and then the keys are the names of different routes, and then we have this factory that actually instantiates a dashboard page. So if you define that it should be deferred, then it's wrapped with this deferred widget over here, this page. And then the deferred widget will basically take care of making sure that it's lazy loaded. Then the next property, you can see we have the maintain state value over here. So in our application now, since I already navigated in this tab to this child 2.1, so on the nested navigation stack, I put another page on top. Now if we come back over here to this first tab and then navigate back to the second tab by clicking on the tab, you can see that the back stack, the navigation stack, it's basically maintained, so it didn't reset to the page with the button that we had at the beginning. And finally, here we have so this is the default route for this sub navigation stack defined, and then this is the page that I can navigate to. So in the end, let's have also a quick look at how this navigation actually works. So here I'm using this extension functions on context, and I can just pass this route. If you have a look into it, you can see that it's basically autorouter x on build context and extension. And you have a lot of things available here, like the router itself, and then you have these functions which do nothing more than call the router that is defined over here, which is taken out of context. So we have the inherited widget most probably working on here. Of course, you don't have to use this extension methods. You can also do autoroute of this inside of your widget and navigate then by having basically all the same methods available there. So as a final note, don't be afraid also to look into the generated code. There is nothing scary here. There is the uprouter that was generated for you that you are using, or I'm using right now in my application, instantiating. And then you can see that the router or the delegates or whatever it's used, it can get this map of basically page factories. So this defines how different pages are generated based on the root names. And here is also the configuration, which is matching the configuration that I've defined over here. So you can see it's also a tree, just instead of using this autoroute objects, we are having here the root configurations, which are another data object just with the configuration. And this root configuration I used internally to navigate in between different screens or pages. And finally, here are specific configurations, so page root info defined for each of the pages that we had defined, or tabs in my case, or screens in your case maybe. I hope this video helped you a little bit to understand autoroute and start using it with your application. And especially if you have a more advanced setup where you would have some nested routers, you can have more than one nesting inside. So in this simple application, I have only a nested router inside of this router over here in the second tab, but you could have another router in this tab that would have, for example, two different outputs and so on, so on. You could go forever until infinity with that. In the comments, let me know what is your favorite solution to navigation, especially with some navigation bars or tab bars or whatever. If you liked this video and it helped you a little bit, then check the description where there is a link to this simple project that I created. And also, please subscribe to this channel, leave me a like, and I code you to death, and I see you the next time. Bye bye!